The sticky, sweet smell of spun sugar and popcorn hung heavy in the air, a familiar perfume of manufactured joy. Around me the world was a cacophony of delight, the delighted shrieks of children on the Dragon's Fury mini coaster, the cheerful, tinny music pumping from hidden speakers, the rumbling thunder of the giant wooden roller coaster, the Leviathan that dominated the park's skyline. My 7-year-old niece Maya was a blur of pink and glitter beside me, her small hand clutching a half-eaten pretzel, her eyes wide with the pure, unadulterated wonder of a child at Wonderland Park. "Auntie Clara, can we go on the teacups again? Please," she begged, pointing a sticky finger towards the whirling pastel cups. I forced a smile, the gesture feeling foreign on my face. "Maybe in a little bit, sweetie. Let's finish our pretzels first." It was a perfect Saturday. The sky was a brilliant cloudless blue, and I had taken Maya for the day to give my sister a much-needed break. It was supposed to be a day of escape for both of us. For her, from the endless demands of childhood. For me, from the quiet, echoing emptiness of our house. My husband, Alex, was in Chicago for a 3-day fintech conference. He'd texted me that morning, a picture of a PowerPoint slide with dense charts. Keynote speaker is a cure for insomnia. Wish I was with you. Coffee. Here is terrible. I'd sent back a heart emoji and a photo of Maya, with her face painted like a tiger. "We miss you. Have a productive day. Productive." The word tasted like ash in my mouth now. We were walking through the Storybook Village section of the park, a whimsical area with oversized toadstools and cartoon character cottages, when I saw him. At first, it was just a flicker of familiarity in the dense crowd. A man with Alex's broad shoulders, his dark, wavy hair. He was standing in line for a caricature artist, his back mostly to me. "It's just someone who looks like him," I told myself, my heart giving a stupid little lurch. Alex is 600 miles away, drowning in spreadsheets and corporate jargon. Maya tugged on my hand. "I'm thirsty, Auntie Clara." "Okay, baby. Let's get you a lemonade." I started steering her towards a vendor cart, but my eyes were drawn back to the man. He shifted, turning to speak to someone beside him, and the world tilted on its axis. It was him. There was no doubt. He was wearing the grey polo shirt I'd bought him for his birthday, last month. The one with the tiny embroidered eagle on the chest. On his wrist, the silver watch I'd given him for our 10th anniversary glinted in the sun. He wasn't in Chicago. He was here, less than 50 feet away from me, in the middle of Wonderland Park. My breath hitched in my throat, a sharp, painful gasp. My first thought was a nonsensical, panicked jumble. His flight must have been cancelled. He came to surprise us. But how did he know we were here? But the hopeful, idiotic fantasy dissolved the instant I saw who he was with. He wasn't alone. He was with a woman, a pretty brunette with a sun-kissed glow, wearing a yellow sundress. She laughed at something he said, a bright, easy sound, and leaned her head on his shoulder. It was a gesture of casual, profound intimacy. And they weren't alone either. Clinging to the woman's hand was a little girl who looked to be about 5, her hair in 2 neat braids, and standing just in front of Alex, his hand resting protectively on the boy's shoulder, was a small boy, maybe 8 years old, with Alex's same dark, wavy hair. A family. He was here with a family. The sounds of the park faded into a dull, distant roar. The bright, saturated colors of the day seemed to wash out, leaving everything in shades of gray. I watched as Alex leaned down and ruffled the little boy's hair, the exact same gesture he used with our golden retriever. The boy looked up at him and grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. Alex laughed, a real unforced laugh that I hadn't heard in months, and then he turned and dropped a light kiss on the woman's temple. She smiled up at him, a look of pure, uncomplicated adoration on her face. It was a perfect portrait of a happy family on a day out. And my husband, the man who had claimed he was too focused on his career to even discuss starting a family with me, the man who was supposed to be in another state on business, was the father at the center of it. I stood rooted to the spot, the half-eaten pretzel falling from my numb fingers. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a cheap, sordid affair in a motel. This was a life, a whole separate, established life that he had been living behind my back. The late nights at the office, the frequent business trips that had become his new normal over the past few years. The second cell phone he claimed was for work only. The separate bank account he'd opened, explaining it was to better manage his travel expenses and bonuses. Every lie, every excuse, every single puzzle piece I had refused to see, now slammed into place with brutal, sickening clarity. He wasn't just a cheater. He was the architect of a breathtakingly complex deception. Our 12-year marriage, the life I believed we were building together, was a sham. I was the side project, the convenient, stable home base he returned to when he was done playing house with his real family. A hot, violent wave of rage surged through me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to march over there and detonate that perfect little family portrait with the force of a nuclear bomb. I wanted to see the look on his face when he turned and saw me. I wanted to see the confusion in the woman's eyes. I wanted to rip our life apart, right there, in front of the caricature artist and the laughing children and the whole damn world. But as the fantasy played out in my mind, a cold, clear thought cut through the red haze of my anger. An explosion would be messy. It would be chaotic. It would make me the hysterical, crazy wife. It would give him the opportunity to play the victim, to craft a narrative, to lie his way out of it, as he had clearly lied his way through everything else. The children would cry, the woman would be confused, and I would be left standing in the wreckage with nothing but my own pain. No, this betrayal wasn't a crime of passion. It was a long con, a meticulous, calculated, multi-year fraud. It didn't deserve a screaming match. It deserved a demolition. It deserved a plan. "Auntie Clara, are you okay?" Maya's small voice broke through my trance. She was looking up at me, her brow furrowed with concern. I looked down at her innocent face, and a strange calm settled over me. It was a chilling, unnatural stillness, like the surface of a frozen lake. The grief and the fury were still there, raging beneath the ice, but on the surface there was only clarity. I knew what I had to do. "I'm okay, sweetie," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You know what? I have a really big headache all of a sudden. I think we need to go home." I didn't look back at them. I didn't need to. The image of Alex, his secret son, and his other life was permanently seared into my memory. As I guided Maya towards the exit, my mind was already working. The shock was receding, being replaced by a cold, sharp, and methodical focus. He thought he was smart. He thought he had built an unbreachable fortress of lies. He had no idea he had just handed me the blueprints. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. And I was going to be the one who decided how it ended. That night, Alex came home from his conference. I heard his key in the lock, and my entire body went rigid. For a split second, the raw, visceral urge to scream at him, to demand answers, to throw the photo I'd discreetly taken at the park in his face, was so strong it felt like a physical force. But I shoved it down, burying it under layers of ice. My performance had to begin now, and it had to be flawless. I walked out of the kitchen, wiping my hands on a dish towel, and gave him the same tired, loving smile I'd given him 1,000 times before. "Hey, you. Welcome home. How was Chicago?" He dropped his carry-on bag, the sound echoing in the quiet hall. He looked exhausted, but it was a shallow, performative exhaustion. I could see the truth now. The subtle tells I had been blind to, for years. The slight flicker in his eyes as he constructed the lie, the way he rubbed the back of his neck when he was being particularly deceptive. "Long," he sighed, pulling me into a hug. "God, it's good to be home." I let him hold me, my body stiff and unresponsive in his arms. I could smell the faint, unfamiliar scent of a different soap on his skin, mixed with the stale air of a long car ride, not an airplane. He pulled back and handed me a small rectangular box from a famous Chicago chocolatier. "Brought you something." I opened it. Inside lay a perfect row of dark chocolate truffles, a guilt offering, a prop for his elaborate stage play. "You shouldn't have," I said, my voice a perfect imitation of gentle affection. "You must be starving. I made your favorite, lasagna." Over dinner I listened. I listened to him spin a detailed, intricate web of fiction about his trip. He talked about the keynote speaker, a man I knew from a quick Google search had actually canceled his appearance due to illness. He described the awful hotel coffee and the unbearably stuffy conference rooms. He named colleagues he'd supposedly had dinner with. Each word was a stone, and I was patiently, silently gathering everyone he threw. I was no longer his wife. I was a stenographer at his deposition. On the outside, I nodded, sympathized, and asked the appropriate questions. On the inside, I was taking notes, cross-referencing his lies with the single damning truth I now possessed. He was at a theme park with his other family. The real investigation began after he went to bed, snoring softly beside me, blissfully unaware of the tectonic shift that had occurred in our universe. Sleep had become an alien concept to me. The night was now my domain, our silent sleeping house my field of operations. His home office, once a place I rarely entered, became my headquarters. His work phone was the first target. He kept it in his briefcase, and he was arrogant enough to use a simple passcode. The year his favorite sports team had won the championship. I was in within seconds. It was like opening a door into his secret world. The phone's background was a picture of the 2 children I'd seen at the park, smiling gap-toothed in a school photo. A quick scroll through his contacts revealed a saved number under the name Home, which I knew was not our number. But the real treasure was the banking app. He had told me his bonus had been smaller this year, that the firm was tightening its belt. We'd canceled our planned trip to Italy because of it. But the balance in his business account told a different story. It was a healthy 6-figure sum. I scrolled through the transaction history, my heart beating a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. It was all there, a meticulously documented ledger of his double life. There was a recurring monthly payment labeled Mortgage Northwood. Another for Northwood Elementary Tuition, charges from toy stores, children's clothing shops, a family-sized grocery bill every single week. He wasn't just visiting this family. He was funding them. He was their provider. The mortgage payment gave me the address, a 4-bedroom house in Northwood, a quiet, affluent suburb 100 miles away. Far enough to be a separate world, close enough for a weekend commute. I typed the address into Google Maps and switched to Street View. My breath caught in my chest. There it was, a handsome blue colonial with white trim, a basketball hoop over the garage, and a large oak tree with a tire swing in the front yard. It was the kind of family home he'd always told me he wasn't ready for. The school payments gave me their names, Leo and Sophie Miller. Not Miller Davis or some other combination. Miller, his name. A furious possessive pride burned in that choice. With their names and the mother's, Sarah Miller according to the joint credit card statements, I turned to social media. Her accounts were private, of course. But people are careless. She was a member of the Northwood Elementary PTA's public Facebook group. It was a cheerful page filled with bake sale announcements and event photos. And there, in an album from the school's spring carnival, I found them. Dozens of photos. Sarah smiling, running the prize booth. Leo, his face painted like a spider, holding up a goldfish in a bag. And Alex, my Alex, flipping burgers at the grill, wearing a PTA dad apron, laughing with other parents. The date stamp on the photos was from 2 months ago, a Saturday he had told me he had to spend at the office, putting out a fire. I took pictures of everything with my own phone, my movements precise and silent in the dark. I downloaded the bank statements, the school receipts, the damning photographs. I created a new encrypted folder on a thumb drive that I kept hidden in a hollowed-out book on my shelf. I labeled the folder Janus, after the two-faced Roman god. The hardest part was the daylight. It was living with him, sleeping next to him, and pretending that the ground beneath my feet hadn't crumbled into dust. One evening he came up behind me while I was cooking and wrapped his arms around my waist. "You know I love you, right?" He murmured into my hair. I could feel the lie, a cold, slick thing, slithering between us. I leaned back into him, forcing myself not to recoil. "I love you too," I whispered, while on my laptop screen, hidden by a spreadsheet, was an open tab with the Zillow listing for his Northwood house, complete with photos of a cozy living room and a child's bedroom with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. A week into my investigation, I had a close call. I was in his car, searching for the registration to see if it was listed under the Northwood address, when he came out of the house, unexpectedly. My heart leaped into my throat. I slammed the glove box shut and pretended to be looking for my sunglasses, my hands shaking. "Find them?" he asked, oblivious, leaning in to kiss me. He saw only what he expected to see, his slightly ditzy, loving wife. His underestimation of me had always been his greatest blind spot. Now, it was my most powerful weapon. After 3 weeks, my case was airtight. I had a complete financial history of his other life. I had the address of his other home, the names and ages of his other children, and a collection of photos that painted a vivid portrait of Alex Miller, the devoted husband and father. I had everything. The quiet investigation was complete. Sitting in my office late one night, the Janus folder open on my screen, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The screaming, wounded part of my soul had gone quiet, replaced by a cold, diamond-hard resolve. He was the author of this elaborate fiction. But I would be the one to write the final chapter. I thought about the perfect setting, the perfect audience for the story's premiere. And then I remembered. His parents' 50th wedding anniversary. Party was in a month. A huge catered affair celebrating 5 decades of unwavering commitment and fidelity. The irony was poetic. It would be a celebration of family values, after all, just not in the way anyone expected. The month leading up to the anniversary party was the strangest of my life. I was a ghost in my own home, a method actor who never broke character. I went through the motions of our shared life with a chilling precision. I discussed catering options for the party with my mother-in-law, helped Alex pick out a new suit for the occasion, and smiled placidly as he talked about our future, a future I knew was a complete fiction. He saw my quiet focus as supportive dedication to his family's milestone. He had no idea I was planning a funeral, the death of his reputation, the burial of his lies. The party was held in the grand ballroom of the Oak Creek Country Club, a place filled with memories of family christenings and holiday dinners. The room was bathed in the warm glow of crystal chandeliers, the tables adorned with white linens and towering floral centerpieces. The air buzzed with polite conversation and the clinking of champagne glasses, familial success and legacy. I wore a simple, elegant navy blue dress. It was the color of a deep, moonless night sky just before the dawn. Alex was in his element, gliding through the room, accepting pats on the back, his charming smile firmly in place. He held my hand, squeezing it periodically, casting me loving glances for the benefit of his relatives. I was his beautiful, devoted accessory. To everyone there, we were the golden couple, the aspirational future of the Miller family. The irony was so thick I could taste it. After the main course, Alex's father, John, stood to give a heartfelt speech. He spoke of his 50 years with his wife, Mary, his voice thick with emotion. He talked about loyalty, trust, and the importance of the family they had built. When he finished, the room erupted in sentimental applause. Then a few others gave toasts. Finally, I stood up, tapping my glass gently with a knife. A warm, expectant hush fell over the 100 guests. Alex beamed at me, reaching for my hand. I let him take it for a moment before gently pulling away to grasp the lectern. "Good evening," I began, my voice clear and steady, amplified slightly by the microphone. "John, Mary, what can I say? 50 years. It's an incredible achievement. To build a life, a home, and a family on a foundation of love, honesty, and unwavering commitment is the most beautiful legacy anyone could hope for." I paused, letting my eyes sweep across the room, meeting the smiling faces of our family and friends. "You've set such a powerful example for your children, an example of devotion so strong it inspires them to build their own wonderful families and carry on that legacy." I turned my gaze to my husband. His smile was wide, proud, and utterly oblivious, and I have never been prouder of the way Alex has embraced that lesson. I continued, my voice smooth as silk. His dedication to the concept of family is so profound, so all-encompassing, that he has managed quite miraculously to build and support not just one, but 2 separate families for the better part of a decade. The silence in the room was instantaneous and absolute. It was as if all the air had been sucked out of the ballroom. Smiles froze and faltered. Alex's face went slack, the color draining from it as if a plug had been pulled. "I know it's a lot to take in," I said into the dead quiet. "It's a testament to his incredible character. In fact, in honor of this celebration of family, I thought it was only right that we acknowledge all of the Miller family legacy. With the help of the event coordinator, I've put together a small presentation." With a discreet click of the remote in my hand, a large projector screen descended smoothly from the ceiling behind me. The first image that appeared was a beautiful, black-and-white photograph of John and Mary on their wedding day in 1975. A soft, sad sigh went through the room. The next slide was a current photo of them, smiling, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, -2. "A beautiful family," I narrated calmly. "But the picture is incomplete." The next slide appeared. It was a split screen. On the left, our official wedding portrait, me and Alex young and hopeful. On the right, a candid photo from the Northwood PTA Facebook page. Alex and a smiling brunette, Sarah, standing with their arms around each other, looking every bit the happy married couple. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. The slideshow continued with a cold, relentless rhythm. A picture of the handsome blue colonial house in Northwood. The caption below it read, "The Other Miller Home, 124 Oak Street, Northwood." Next, the school photos of the two beautiful children. Your grandchildren, Leo Miller, age 8, and Sophie Miller, age 5. Then, a screenshot of a bank statement with a mortgage payment and a tuition payment highlighted in yellow. The final slide was the most devastating. It was a child's crayon drawing I had photographed from his briefcase a week prior. A simple stick-figure family, holding hands under a smiling sun. Written across the top in a child's scrawl were the words, "Mommy, Daddy, Leo, and me." I let that image hang in the suffocating silence for a long moment. Then I turned to my ashen-faced in-laws. "John, Mary, congratulations," I said, my voice gentle but clear. "You have 2 more beautiful grandchildren. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, finally." I looked at Alex. He was a statue carved from ice, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and disbelief. He looked utterly destroyed, a man whose 2 worlds had just collided with the force of an asteroid. "The divorce papers were filed this morning, Alex," I said, my voice no louder than a normal conversation, yet it carried to every corner of the silent room. "A copy is waiting for you at the Northwood house. I'd suggest you go there. The locks on my house have already been changed." With that, I reached up and took off my wedding ring. I placed the diamond and platinum band deliberately on the white tablecloth next to my untouched champagne flute. The small click it made was like a gunshot. I didn't wait for the aftermath. I didn't need to hear the shouting, the crying, or the pathetic stammered excuses I knew would follow. My part in this story was over. I picked up my clutch, turned my back on the tableau of ruin I had so carefully orchestrated, and walked. My footsteps were the only sound as I crossed the ballroom, my posture perfect, my head held high. As I pushed open the heavy doors and stepped out into the cool, clean night air, the chaotic eruption of voices behind me was nothing more than a distant storm. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the first truly free breath I had taken in months. The crushing weight that had been compressing my heart had simply vanished, replaced by an expansive, exhilarating lightness. There were no tears. There was no anger. There was only the profound, powerful peace of a war won, a story finished on my own terms. I hadn't just survived his betrayal. I had authored my own liberation. And as I walked away into the darkness, under a canopy of indifferent stars, I smiled. A new chapter was beginning, and for the first time in a very long time I was the only one holding the pen.